Well, first up, I want to thank Rena Mason for inviting me to be part of Stokercon 2016. It's a wonderful honor. It's also great to be here in Vegas. I've lived here for the past 10 years, so I know what I'm talking about. Tonight, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about my book, and also I'd like to share with you, through this presentation, a few of my experiences that I've had with my team over the years. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about me, my favorite subject. I'm an Aquarian. I like long walks on the beach. My favorite color.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Sometimes my wife needs to get me back on track. I'm the chief technologist for interventional radiology for a local medical center here in Las Vegas. It's been my profession for almost 14 years. Basically, I work in the medical field by day, and I'm a paranormal investigator by night. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. My wife Linda, my son David, and I founded EVPS in 2008. EVPS is a culmination of years of fascination with the unknown. Our team has conducted over 100 paranormal investigations to date for both private and commercial clients. We have appeared on such shows as Ghost Adventures Aftershocks, Haunted Collector, and recently, we can add to that list, Ghost Adventures' new show, Zach Bagan's show, Deadly Possessions. So, yeah, we got the first episode actually. Our team's name is Elite Vegas Paranormal Society, which is quite clever. The acronym EVP is short for Electronic Voice Phenomena, or EVPs. An EVP is a spirit voice captured on a digital recorder, similar to this one right here, during an investigation. I want to share with you an actual EVP captured during an investigation at Goldfield High School. There were no children in the building at the time, only a team of 10 investigators. That was our team. We have a very large team. It's right at the beginning of the clip, and it sounds like a little girl. However, we are unable to tell. We think it may be mumbling or even humming. So we're going to try to figure this out. If we had a speaker system that worked, it would have been a lot better. Unfortunately, we don't. Do I need this? Can you guys hear me okay?
You don't have to.
I feel like I'm...
The voice.
Check, 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 check.
Actually,
Let's use that one here. So, I'm going to have Linda play that again. I want you to listen very closely to the very beginning of the clip, because this was an accidental find. So right at the beginning, you're going to hear it.
can you hold that so I can press?
We'll play it again. You hear like a humming sound at the beginning? A little girl, is what we thought. So Ghostbox is hard to listen to anyway, just because of the sound, but it's important to note that there was only our team of investigators. It was 2 a.m. There was nobody else there. It was just us, okay? And Carolyn here was the one that actually, her young ears picked that up. She heard it and audibly tells you, go ahead and play it again. You can actually hear her responding to hearing that. So that's Carolyn. She's actually hearing that audible in the room, which is quite extraordinary. Usually you have to listen back to your digital recorder to find it. Well, we found it, and of course we're investigating, or reviewing rather, different from what Carolyn is doing. So it's kind of cool to say, hey Carolyn, you actually heard it happen in the room. It was very exciting. Now at that point I was supposed to tell you to keep quiet in the back row because it's going to be hard to hear way back there, but I don't have to worry about that. So this would also be classified as a, my wife's turning my pages, as a disembodied voice because it was actually heard in the room audibly. We didn't have to use our devices to hear it. Now, all the old people in the room, which is me, I didn't hear it, but she acknowledged it on the tape, so that was kind of cool that she actually heard it. Sometimes that happens. It's also a great example of capturing an EVP when you least expect it. We were walking from another level to an upper level of the high school. It's a 3-level building, built in 1907, I believe, and is abandoned today. We're actually doing our part to help rebuild it. We hold an event every year in August called the Las Vegas Paracon. And that's actually, the whole event is putting money back into that building. Last year we raised $2,000 for the John S. Cook Bank building. The owners of that building are sitting right here in front of us, which is another building that we do a lot with, and also $2,000 for the high school. So that was very cool for us. Now, if you look at the screen now, it says paranormal. If you read this definition, you don't see the words ghost or spirit. You do, however, see the word scientific. To me, this means that if you're going to explore the paranormal and expect to be taken seriously, you'd better do your research and have solid theory to back up your findings. After all, 99% of all claims can be discredited and proven as natural occurrences. There is, however, that 1%, that it defies all logic and falls under the true definition of paranormal. Today, when the general public sees the word or hears it mentioned, they automatically think of ghosts, hauntings, or perhaps they think of these guys. So this brings me to the difference between ghost hunters and paranormal investigators. But first, I feel it important that I emphasize at this point in my presentation that there is no such thing as a paranormal expert. I am not a paranormal expert. They just do not exist. I will say this, there are those out there that have kept their nose to the grindstone over the years and have contributed greatly to our field through both scientific research and development of more advanced equipment used in the field today. And we are always looking for new equipment. Stuff comes out all the time. We have tons of it that is literally in a case at home that we don't use because it doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do.
We have some here.
And we do have equipment here that anybody welcome to come up afterwards and I'll explain it or show it or test it or whatever. The people that do all this development, they too will tell you that they are not paranormal experts. The field of paranormal research is still in its infancy, and only recently have we begun to explore this phenomenon by more scientific means to validate our findings. We're a community of like-minded individuals and societies that are in search of the answer to one of life's greatest questions. Is there life after death? That's what keeps us going. In our field, if you call a paranormal investigator a ghost hunter, it's like calling Mount Everest just a hill. And this, of course, is a picture of a seasoned paranormal investigator and my best friend. I want to make this very clear. The ghost hunter is all about the thrill and doesn't get hung up in all the details. To them, sitting in the dark with a flashlight is simply a slice of heaven and another chance to capture EVPs. Now, I'm not disparaging this group of individuals. I would simply classify them with the same people that love to jump from airplanes and ride roller coasters. To them, the scarier the better. The paranormal investigator loves research. We love to know who lived there, who died there, how they died, what year was a certain building constructed. The paranormal investigator thrives on details. This to them brings the story of the location to life and helps to validate findings during the paranormal investigation. Knowing the facts helps the investigator target the claims, identify the people that they're trying to contact. In short, if you don't take the time to do the research on a location and find relevant information that may corroborate your claims, how do you expect to validate your findings? It should also be noted that just because someone claims their building or home is haunted, doesn't mean it's haunted. Linda Vista Hospital. This is a great example of knowing your history of a location prior to an investigation. Linda Vista Hospital was one of the most haunted locations in the United States, and I'm proud to say that EVPS was one of the last teams to hunt this amazing building. It was built in 1905 and used primarily for the Santa Fe Railroad employees and was originally called the Santa Fe Railroad Hospital. The hospital closed in 1991 because of the decline in quality of care. Doctors were leaving to other hospitals for better working conditions, and the hospital's mortality statistics were nothing to write home about due to the ever-increasing gang deaths. The hospital treated more than its fair share of stabbings, gang-related gunshot wounds from the local neighborhood gangs. It was reported that one gang member, upon his discharge, was gunned down on the front steps of the hospital by a rival gang member as soon as he exited the building. This kind of traumatic energy can impact a location and help to create a haunting by attaching itself to the building and occasionally the surrounding area. So,
He's gotta walk.
I gotta walk, sorry. So Linda Vista Hospital, we had the opportunity, I believe, in 2011 to go out there and actually investigate this place. Now this is a huge hospital in East LA, and it is amazing. So we were out there with our team, and being in the medical field, we decided we would go into this hospital. If we're going to investigate it, what's the best way to actually encourage spirit activity? Dress like a doctor. So we all wore scrubs, we wore hat, we wore masks, we wore gowns. I think I had my medical jacket on, my white coat, and we were walking through the halls for a while, and it was very, very cool. We had experiences with shadows, we heard footsteps down hallways. What were some of the other things? Screams. It's an amazing building. So we decided at that point, since there was all this medical equipment sitting in this OR room on the first floor, we thought, well, let's create a scenario where we're losing a patient. And let's call out for these doctors to come in here and try to help us. So we had one of our team members actually lay on the table. We gowned him, we covered him up. We had some stuff laid around. I think we had an old EKG. I think we had a defibrillator in there. And somebody had hat and mask, and we were calling out meds, you know, bring lidocaine, epinephrine, whatever. We were calling out this stuff, and then somebody over a microphone or a radio was calling out, we need Dr. So-and-so in here right now. We're losing this patient, get him in here now. And everybody was frantically running around the room. Well, we had these little devices here. Okay, this is a REM pod. And basically what that does is it picks up EMF, or electromagnetic frequency. So basically, when you have this guy on and you're setting in a room, or you can set it, these typically set alone. So when something breaks that field or gets close, you get this audible tone. So what happened was we put 2 of these in the only doorway in or out of that room. And we set them outside in the hallway, one a little bit further down, one right by the door. And as soon as we started doing this mock code, these guys started going off.
Which they don't go off.
These are rare to go off. I know on TV, you see it all the time. They're like, oh my God, the REM pod's going off. It doesn't work that way. These things are they're not very sensitive, so it takes a lot for these guys to go off. It was very cool because we set up an experiment, and we actually knew what we were looking for, what kind of reaction, and we got it. And that's the scientific part of it. If you don't set up a demonstration or a experiment and try to create a situation where you're going to get some sort of, hopefully, in this case, the REM pod's going off, that would be a good conclusion to our experiment. So that's one of the things we did with Linda Vista Hospital, and it was very, very cool. We had a good time. We were one of the last teams actually to hunt there, and that's it. But more. You remember I said it was one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Well, there's some good news here to report, and I get to do it. I'm excited. In 2011, Linda Vista Hospital was purchased by a real estate developer to renovate the property into 120 senior living apartments for East Los Angeles area. Awesome! That is so cool. So the developer, knowing the reputation, reportedly spent millions of dollars to expunge the hospital's haunted reputation from the internet, including photos, videos, internet claims. Voila! No more ghosts. You just get on the internet, you spend a couple of million, now everybody can live there safely. Yes, today this former bad boy of East LA once again stands proud, and I'm happy to say it is no longer haunted. I guess money can buy you just about anything. Today, Lynn and I and David, we see this building now more as a staging area. Old folks move in and they can stay as long as they like. My wife tells me that we're going to live there when we retire. That way we can hunt whenever we want. On a more serious note, I don't know why I'm doing that. On a more serious note, now this is where I find my true inspiration. Use the mic? Okay, sorry. Is that better? Is that my sexy voice? Thank you. This is where I find my true inspiration, in Einstein's energy theory. In part, Einstein wrote that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It cannot be changed, or it can only be changed from one form to another. Now think about that for a minute. Energy cannot be destroyed. It cannot be created. As a medical professional, I understand that within our bodies there are a process in which electrical impulses are communicated through a series of pathways. These pathways send to our muscles electrical impulses to move in a desired direction. They tell our hearts when to beat in the appropriate time and even tell us when to breathe. If you think about it, when a person goes into cardiac arrest, the EMTs will use a defibrillator to jolt their heart back to life using this high energy. Energy, energy, energy. We are energy. Each and every one of us has this amazing electronic wiring from the time our heart first begins to beat in the womb. So I pose this question. I love this stuff. Once our body ceases to function, once we have taken our last breath and our heart stops beating, once our brains have executed its last neural synapse, what happens to that energy? We're in the ground. We're worm beast. What happens to that energy? If we adhere to Einstein's theory, we know that that energy we once possessed is still there. It has not been destroyed. It has not been snuffed out like the flame on the gas stove once you turn off the gas. I believe in some instances that these energies could be the very spirits that roam our world and even sometimes be seen out of the corner of our eyes. The unlucky soul on the morgue table you see in this slide has ceased to exist. His mortal form has stopped functioning. Let's hope that this is not one of the spirits that roams freely in our world today. Do you notice the name on the name tag? This man would not be a very nice spirit. So this brings me to good and evil. I believe there are two common types of spirits that are found during a typical investigation. During our years of paranormal investigations, we found that there are those spirits that have led a good life while they walked the earth, and there are those that didn't. While they were alive, they didn't care much for those they shared the world with. When we were kids, it's like the old man on the corner street that yelled each time our baseball got even close to his yard. Or the old woman that never said hello or waved back, instead snarling every time we walked past our house. So that brings me to one of my basic beliefs. If you're good in life, it makes sense that you'd be good in death. Bad in life, bad in death. When our team gets a call for an investigation, the story is almost the same, with few exceptions. I think there's a demon in my house. Freestyle.
Story time.
Story time.
You gonna spin your head?
No green suit. So one night, it was probably about 10:30. Linda and I were going to bed, watching a little TV, trying to make us tired. I get a phone call, and I feel like I'm in AA. Hi, my name is Brian. Anyway, on the other end of the line is a 16-year-old girl. And she says, "Are you the paranormal investigators we see on the internet?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, that's us." And she says, "I think we need your help." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" And I've already discovered this is a young girl, so I'm kind of like, okay, what's going on here? And she says, "My mom is possessed and by the devil, basically." And I said, "Well, what makes you think your mom's possessed?" She says, "Well, she masturbates all the time, runs around the house naked, and gives the dog her Xanax." So Xanax is the first clue, okay? So I said, "Is there an adult in the house that I could talk to other than your possessed mother?" And she says, "Yes." She says, "My grandmother's here." I said, "Could I please speak to her?" She put her on the phone. She repeats the exact same thing her granddaughter just told me. So I'm going, okay. So we talked to her at length, I do anyway, and ask her a bunch of questions, because we always do an interview before we do an actual investigation, because we want to know what we're dealing with. And a lot of times, being in the medical field, we can eliminate a lot of stuff. You know, if somebody calls and says, "A demon keeps grabbing me on my legs at night," and you find out that they have been diagnosed with neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy, so that can give you the illusion that something's grabbing your legs. So we use this. We have other team members that are medical professionals as well, nurses, EMTs, so forth. So I talked to her for length and find out that she's diagnosed schizophrenic, bipolar, depression, and she's not taking her meds. The dog is. Okay, so I said, "Ma'am, you don't need a paranormal person to come out and investigate your home. What you really need is to take her back to your primary and have the meds upped, or, you know, tell her how important it is to take them stay on them. So that's that story.
It's over there. Just one more.
Yeah, that's fun. I don't like being cooped up. So sometimes the spirit means you no harm when they interact with you. Now I'd like to share with you something that happened to me during a routine investigation. Linda, go ahead and play the clip.
Okay, we need to come here with you.
Oh, I'm gonna use my microphone for her, so I'm back.
Brian Purdy is a tour guide at Bonnie Springs Ranch, the victim of a traumatizing spiritual possession.
When I watch this video and I see my wife as concerned and scared she was,
If anybody knows you are not being you, it's going to be your wife.
right, and I'm seeing the fear in her eyes, and that scares the daylights out of me.
Say it. No, you're not. I want Brian to look at me. I want my husband to look at me.
So that was just a snippet. You can actually go on to Travel Channel and look that whole episode up. That episode lasted approximately 40 minutes, and I have no recollection of it. It started in the Opera House. Actually, Telly was the one that instigated. Thanks, Telly. He called and said, hey, I got family in town. They want to see what we do. Can we go up to Bonnie Springs, which we go up to all the time, and do a hunt? And I said, sure. So we had just completed a 3-day, our Paracon was that weekend, so we were exhausted. You guys know, the ones that are running this, you guys know it's exhausting. It's running all over, trying to make sure everything, you don't even get to enjoy the show because you are so busy making sure it goes off without a hitch. So we understand that. So we tell Telly, yeah, let's do this. We had a team that was there for our Paracon from Australia, and they said, hey, can we tag along? And we said, absolutely. So we all went up one day. Lynn and I, exhausted, we rushed out of the house, forgetting a lot of stuff. But we grabbed our equipment, that's the most important, and began our investigation. I was lucky enough that Dave, my son, was there and filmed it. I don't know why, he doesn't know why, but he brought a camera along and he started rolling from the very first time we started the investigation. And I would say it was probably about an hour into it that we were doing this. And all of a sudden, as I was sitting at a table across from Carolyn, I believe, or down from her, I had this shooting, stabbing pain in my lower back. And I'm an old guy, so I have back problems. And I figured that's what it was. And David and Telly were the first ones to tell me, get out. Dave said, are you doing okay? And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, get out. So right away, I think they were thinking paranormal, something spiritual going on. And I didn't. I thought it was just old guy pains. So I walked out of the building and stood on the front porch, and immediately the pain started to go away. So the next thing I noticed, and I have this inner dialogue going on in my head, and I'm going, wow, these mountains are beautiful. The sun had just set, so it was still just glowing, and it's beautiful out here. The trees are beautiful. These buildings are amazing. And I'm actually, in my head, I'm going, what are you talking about? You're here the last Saturday of every month doing an investigation. You're here all the time. You've been here for almost 5 years, every month. And now all of a sudden the mountains are beautiful, the trees are beautiful. It was very, very weird. So that was the last thing I remember. The next thing I know, and it was light, you could see the blue of the sky. The next thing I know, I'm sitting at a park or a picnic table down at the lower level, and I don't know how many people have been up to Bonnie Springs or how many are out-of-towners, but this building that I started in sits up about 8-9 feet above the ground, and you have to walk down the stairs and get to the plateau where the picnic tables are. And it was pitch black. I'm soaking wet, and I'm going, what the hell happened? And everybody's standing around me. I don't know, I look like Puff Daddy. I had all these necklaces, these crosses around my neck. And I'm kind of looking down, and everybody's kind of in my face, and I'm going, what's going on? And they say, well, you got jumped. And I go, no, I didn't. They say, yeah, you did. And I'm like going, why is my neck all wet? And they said, because we thought you were stroking. One of the nurses on the team thought you were stroking. And Dave tells me, I found you in this saloon 20 minutes after you left because your back was hurting. And I go, I wasn't in the saloon. He goes, yes, you were. I said, no, I wasn't. He goes, he takes the camera, he puts it on the table, flips the monitor, and starts playing. He goes, that's you like 15 minutes ago in the saloon. I have no memory of that. And I'm like, it's surreal already because I don't know why it's dark all of a sudden. I mean, there's obviously a time gap. So Dave plays this video. I'm being exercised by my wife and somebody else. But the point I wanted to make here was that we use the word, instead of using the word possession, we use the word jumped. And the reason is possession has such a negative connotation. When people hear the word possession, they automatically think of Reagan from Exorcist. They think of really bad things, Emily Rose, whatever the other movies are out there. This is, it's really not what happened to me. When I've talked to other people, Zach Bagans for one, from Ghost Adventures, he said that when he was possessed, and he was taken over by many spirits many times over the years, he always feels drained. Now, I went into this tired. I was already tired. I was exhausted. One of the things I didn't do was I didn't wear my St. Michael's. No protection. I was tired. This isn't the first time this happened to me. This happened to us at the Washoe Club a couple years before. And that was less than a good spirit. That was an angry guy. And it didn't last very long. But we learned at that point that we needed to somehow protect ourselves. So we used the St. Michael's prayer. We wear medals. I wear the St. Michael's. Linda doesn't because she's impervious to spirits. That's her own choice. But I felt energized. I didn't feel drained. I had more energy than I ever did. I was like, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's do this. And everybody else is kind of sitting around. They're all worried. You saw Linda's face. She was like going, what the hell's going on? You know, she was very concerned. And me, I was like, let's finish this. Let's do this. But I had no recollection of the whole thing. So spirits don't, everybody jumps to possession right away. And that's really not what happens. They're very rare. They happen, but they're very rare. Where am I at? I probably went too long. Rain is last, so I don't have to worry about it.
Why is that going off? Is it something coming through?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, like
Anybody
I said, they're
text
hard.
message?
As the next slide here, not only can people be possessed, but objects can be possessed. This is a German teacup donated to the EVPS Museum. Now the EVPS Museum, when we used to have a shop up in Goldfield. Yeah. We used to have a shop in Bonnie Springs. We occupied one of their small shops when there was nobody in there and kind of made it into a paranormal museum. We have a lot of little odds and ends stuff that we've gotten throughout the years through our paranormal investigations, Linda Vista stuff. You know, we try to get something everywhere we go. But this one was on display. It was donated by a woman here in Las Vegas that wishes to remain anonymous. And it was given to her by her grandmother. And her grandmother was afraid of it. She said that she would place it on a shelf, a certain shelf in the house. And she would come back a day or two later, and it was moved. Well, it's important to note that she lived alone. Now, she didn't know why this thing was moving, so she wanted it out of the house. Now, her daughter's a paranormal investigator here in town, and she thought it would be a great addition to our museum, so she donated it to us. The grandmother also insisted it wasn't her that moved it. We were conducting an investigation one night with an Australian paranormal group, not the same one, a different one. Once they had fun, they sent their friends. So they came up to Bonnie Springs, and we did an investigation with them. And one of the Australian team members mentioned that she was a medium, but she didn't share that with everybody. She didn't like to tell people because they automatically tried to basically test her, which is what I was going to do.
Which you did.
When we were up in Bonnie Springs, it's interesting because a lot of people, when you get, they all come up, and you always have one person that says, well, I'm a medium, and I'm getting a small child in a schoolhouse. And I would say, that wasn't a schoolhouse. It looks like a schoolhouse because that's what Bonnie Springs made it. So we don't let our environment dictate what we're looking for. You got to find the history. What was this building? And if you don't know, then don't put a label on it and say there's going to be a school teacher in there. So we used to test people. So I know it's kind of nasty, but it's a great way to validate if they're telling you something. So anyway, I took this mug and I put it in this woman's hands, and I made sure that the writing that you see on here was facing me the whole time. I never let her see it. And she took the mug and she kind of leaned her head back and she said, okay, I'm going to read just so I stay on track. She took the cup and she started saying, I am seeing a man, and she felt like it was a soldier. And this soldier had a mustache, and she starts doing this. And I'm going, is she going to sneeze? What's she going to do? And she says, like Hitler. And I go, okay. So she believed that it was once a cup from a concentration camp, and was possibly once owned by a member of Hitler's SS. Now, the story the medium told me about the teacup was identical to the claims the woman who donated it. It was identical. We had never shared that with anybody. And matter of fact, we doubted it. We're like, oh, great, yeah, we'll take that mug. It's cute. We'll put it in our little display and let people see it and tell the story. But we really didn't believe it. Well, this woman made us believe it. Once in our possession, it remained in its place with the exception of the occasional flipping upside down. Demonstrate. It would flip on its top in the case. And it's odd because it did it when I was talking about it. So this was a glass case, about 3 foot. It was a display case.
And it went.
And I remember talking to one gentleman that was in from California, and we were talking about that. He was interested in the cup, and we were talking about it, and you heard this popping sound. And it flipped right in front of us onto its top. And it's interesting because I had hot glued it. Because it kept, every day I'd come in to work, Dave and I, and the cup was on it. So we're like going, you know, it's bumpy floors, we get it. You know, it's wood floors, old floors, so maybe that's what's happening. But we were standing there. We weren't doing anything. And all of a sudden, a loud pop, and this thing rolled over onto its top. So,
You hot glued it.
yeah, I hot glued it.
And it still did it.
It still did it. Recently, I did some research on the German phrase on the teacup. It means a memory of. It turns out this cup is a German cup that was manufactured between 1800 and 1840. The second time. The first time was a little bit older. I don't think this is that old. I'm still researching. It was given for special occasions. It was a commemorative cup, and this one happens to be one that was given during a funeral to the family. So it basically says in memory of. So to us, that was like, wow, that was so cool. Yay. How many of you watch the ghost hunting shows on TV? Anybody? A couple of you? I know you do. You should know that what you see in reality TV and what we experience in reality is very different. For all of us, or for all of you that still believe in Santa Claus, go ahead and cover your ears. I'm going to tell you some stuff. An actual investigation. When we did Linda Vista, it was 8 hours. So we were in there from probably about 9 o'clock, an hour to set up, put cameras everywhere, EVP recorders, figure out where our team was going to split up, where they were going to be. Then you get started. You go to the wee hours of the morning. So say you have just 2 digital recorders. Say you just have 2 of these guys going 8 hours. That's 16 hours of review. Okay? I think we had 4, maybe more. Okay, 32. So if you're going to do this review, you download this onto your computer, onto a program that allows you to see the waveforms, and then you review. You put headphones on, you do nothing else, and you listen. A lot of it's silence. Then all of a sudden, you're going to hear something, and you're going to go, oh, what was that? Then you go back, and you play it about 30,000 times till you know what you heard. Now, we have a phrase in our team that says, when in doubt, throw it out. If we can't agree We don't use it. We don't present it as evidence. So if you can imagine doing that every 30, 40 minutes, having to go over something over and over again, you're not going to wake up the next morning after your investigation and go to the, do quick evidence review and then go to your client and say, hey, we're fresh. We're going to show you everything we caught. It takes weeks. It takes weeks. We just did one recently, and it was, I think, just 2 digital recorders, and we filmed it. So going through the film, going through the audio, it probably took us 3 weeks to get it boiled down to decent evidence. And then we go and present it. So on the shows, you see the beginning, they introduce themselves, they go do an interview with the witnesses, then they go to the client, and he does a walkthrough and tells you a little bit more about the building, and then you start the investigation. Or as Zach likes to call it, the lockdown. So you do your lockdown. You're locked in all night, no communication with the outside world. It's very, very scary. The next morning they wake up, they review for like 10 minutes, then they run over to the client and say, this is what we captured in all those hours of investigating. That doesn't happen. So TV is very, very different from reality. The reality is that those guys don't go to a location one night. It can be up to a week in one location. And they're filming, and they're filming, and they're filming. And then the editors get it, and they boil it down, they cut it down to the best of the best. And that's what you see on TV. So, typical show, 1 hour, minus the commercials, about 40 minutes. They go 2 locations, that's 20 minutes per location. You can boil, 72 hours down into 20 minutes. And that's what you get. And the nice thing about Zach and his crew is that if they don't find anything, they don't make anything up. They basically go, hey, I was funny over here, you can put that out there. That's what they do. So that's one of the shows that I really I admire, because I think that they really do it right, and he sticks to his guns. He doesn't put out junk. He really does do investigations. So that brings me to the next part of it, and that is a shameless plug. Ghosts in the Hood. There is a show I do want you to watch this fall on WeTV. It's a show created by the same guy who brought us Duck Dynasty. His name is Michael Dare. This show is about 5 young paranormal investigators that investigate locations most investigators would not investigate. It's a lot of investigates. The Hood. They go to places that people don't dare to go.
I did.
Ghosts in the Hood, that's right. This is a show that's very near and dear to our hearts because it features my son, David Purdy. Dave, why don't you stand up and say hi? He just got back. He's not feeling well tonight. He just got back from LA. They did their first 6 episodes, and that's going to air this October on WeTV. It's called Ghost in the Hood. So check it out. It is not meant to be serious. It is going to be the Duck Dynasty of paranormal. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be lighthearted and be enjoyable. So check it out. We're very proud of him. It means he's one step closer to getting out of my house. Along our journey, we've had the great fortune of meeting so many people, some with fantastic stories, some with funny stories. Some were just batshit crazy. I mean, they're nuts. We get a lot of those. I'd say 99%. We get some calls and people are for real. And we go in there and we're like, wow. The one we just did was here in Las Vegas it was like, okay, we'll go and check it out. We met them. They seemed, level-headed. They didn't seem, they weren't crazy, right? Okay. And we did this investigation. And yeah, and it actually turned up some really cool evidence. And we presented it probably about a month ago to them, and they were really excited. We confirmed some stuff that they actually needed to know. So it was very, very cool. But there was this one investigation that Linda and I, Dave, embarked on. This was before really we had a full-blown team. Because it started out, it was just me, Linda, and David. We were at Washoe Club, the 3 of us. We were at some of these crazy places, just the 3 of us. That's how it started. And this family that called us, it was Actually, her daughter in Albuquerque, New Mexico, called us in Las Vegas to investigate in Las Vegas, in Henderson. So we said, yeah, we'll check into it. So we went and we sat with them and interviewed them, the Benzingers. Great, great people. It was an old couple, similar to this one. This is not them, but it was similar to them. They were probably in their late 80s. The sweetest couple you'd ever meet. So we went in and we interviewed. The husband didn't want anything to do with it. He was like, she's seeing stuff, I'm not. She had claims that she saw apparitions at night in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the living room. And she also said that she had this picking at night. And I go, explain picking. And she's just like, somebody's digging in the basement. And she said, would you please go down there and tell them to stop? I can't sleep. So we said, you know what, we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. We're going to set up our cameras and we're going to do our investigation, which we did over several weeks. Actually, probably longer than that. We would go there so often to set up sometimes cameras, sometimes audio, and we just leave it through the night. And then we'd come back the next day, pick it all up, go back and review. We were over there so often, we kind of got to know the couple a little bit. And Linda would be in the kitchen, and she'd be talking to the wife, and she'd be like, what are you doing? She'd, oh, I'm preparing, dinner. So Linda's looking at these little trays of food, little round trays, and she's peeling the top off, getting ready to mic it, I don't know. And Linda comes up to me after that time, and she said, every time I go in there, there's nothing, because they always offer water. Can I get you something to drink? And she'd go to her refrigerator and she'd open it up. There was nothing in there. It was like they hardly had any food in there. So Linda comes to me and she's concerned and she says, I don't know that they're eating all that well. And the food that she's preparing is from one of these senior living places that delivers it. And she goes, it looks very unappetizing. So I said, well, what do you want to do? And so what Linda started doing was she started preparing these week-long meals. And she'd box them up and we'd take them over and drop them off, visit with the family, or the couple. And in between, we do an investigation, here and there. And we never really found anything at their house. We caught a couple of EVPs we couldn't explain, but all the time that we investigated, we never really found anything. But we grew to love this couple. Later on, she called one night and said, hey, I need to cancel, you guys coming up? And we're saying, hey, what's wrong? And she says, well, my husband's been in bed, and we had noticed it, we had talked about it. He wasn't coming out anymore. Now, throughout all the times that we've been out there, he actually started coming out and admitting that he too was seeing these apparitions. He was just afraid to say something at the beginning. So we started seeing less and less of him every time we'd go over, and she called and said, I have to take him to the doctor, so we're not going to do it tonight, because I don't know what time we'll get home. And I said, well, I hope everything's okay. We'll call you tomorrow. I think it was probably, there's no answer the next night. I think it was probably maybe a week or two. And she calls me back and she says, hey, I just want you to know that my husband was diagnosed with a late-stage pancreatic cancer. And of course, Linda and I were like, oh crap, this is not good. So, we went over there for a little while, and then she didn't want us to come over anymore. She basically had, resigned herself to her husband being bedridden, not doing anything. She called us not too long after that and said that he passed away. And she moved back to Albuquerque, New Mexico with her daughter, and we hadn't heard from her since. And I don't tell you the story to kind of pat us on the back for the good deeds that we were doing. Honestly, it made us feel good to help them. Our parents don't live here, so it was kind of cool that we were able to help this family. The truth is, in all the investigating that we did in that house, they never had a basement. They lived in a single level home in Henderson. So we had spent a lot of time with this family, and there was no picking, there was no apparitions. And I want to use that and leave you with one last thought, and that is that there are a lot of people that you meet when you do whatever you're doing. I don't care if you're a paranormal investigator, or an accountant, or a horror writer. You meet a lot of people in your life, and sometimes these people can teach us a lot about ourselves. We really just have to listen. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Stokercon 2016 for inviting me out. I had a lot of fun. You guys have been great.
Question?
If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Yes?
I'm particularly interested in your possession
Yes.
stories. It seems like you had a total amnesia while you were
Correct.
while you were jumping. Have you ever experienced a possession where something is left behind, some kind of memory or vision, or even reprogramming?
That's a good question. I don't. The only memory I have was knowing that I was admiring everything, which was kind of strange to me. Now, interesting note I think I left out, and that is that the medium that came out with that group, the second Australian group, there was a medium in that group, and she actually was going to get more in depth with the spirit, but she was so concerned with Linda being upset and concerned that she didn't push it. But she said her feeling was it was an older woman, and that she wasn't trying to do anything bad to me. She wanted to see her surroundings. And prior to me talking about what I was doing up here on the porch, it made no sense to me. So all of a sudden it kind of, boom, clued in. And I said, that's why I was admiring everything. Because it was her that was admiring. So in a way, yeah, I kind of have that memory. Whether it was hers or mine, I don't know. But from the time the team woke me or whatever they did, aroused me, brought me back, and the time on the porch, there is absolutely no memory whatsoever. It's just blank. And it's weird because most of you had some sort of surgery where you go under for, even for an hour or whatever. It's weird because your eyes start going down and someone's talking to you and you wake up and you're done. And it's like, wow, that was quick. And they said you were in there for 4 hours. So wait a minute. It was like that. It was just like a medically induced coma. I didn't have any memory. It was kind of weird. I actually like that story because I felt like I joined a club, I felt like, wow, I got a badge of honor here. I've been one of the possessed. We like to call it jumped, but it's just a more gentle term. Any other questions? Yes.
When you talked about the hospital, and you said you kind of set up this scene and provoked them, and if you would, like Ghost Adventures, same thing, they try to provoke something.
Correct.
But then you mentioned also doing this other investigation where you just left cameras and things like that. So do you find that one method works better?
Also a great question. I'll tell you what we've learned. Back in the day, we would actually have, if someone called up and said, hey, I want you to come investigate our house, we'd have them leave. Take your dog, take your children, take you, go somewhere for the night. We want your house for the night. And then something dawned on me. I'm a stranger in their home. What's the liability? Oh yeah, my Rolex watch and my wife's tiara was gone the next morning. So we thought, okay, we need to rethink this. And the truth is that when people claim that they have things happen, a lot of times they're the catalyst. They're the reason. So you take them out of the house, you don't get any activity. So we started recently actually telling them, stay with us. We give them the rules, we tell them how we're going to conduct it. When we tell you we need you to ask questions, ask questions. And we've actually got more activity that way. So I think, and when I mentioned it earlier, that paranormal investigating is really in its infancy, we're learning all the time. There's nobody out there. I mean, there's a lot of people, if you watch TV, you can learn how to do it. A, B, C, this is how you do it. But if you're really open-minded and you go and you experience these things for yourself and you're paying attention, you learn from your mistakes. And that's what we've done. We've done it like everybody else. And we said, well, that was okay. But then when we had the family stay, it was different. Because they were the ones calling to their loved ones. If I walk into a shopping center and I say, here I am, somebody talk to me, they're not going to go, oh, this guy's crazy. So they don't deal with me. But if a loved one's there, it's a different story. It's somebody they're familiar with. These are people just like we are. They're just in another area. We don't know what that area is called. Some people call it the plane. Some people call it the afterlife. We don't know. So I hope I answered your question. Yes?
I've been in several paranormal investigations, and as you're saying, they sometimes they get really aggressive with the spirits, and I always feel like that's not cool.
Yeah.
Why do we want to piss them off and then, like, I feel like we're poking the
Correct.
bear, and then it's like, and then what do we want? Like,
Right. What do you
know,
get?
I always say to people I'm with, like, have specific questions, like, it comes back to the research, right? Like, who are these people? What do we want to know? We're just poking the bear so the thing will blink, like.
Exactly, and that's it. And you know, if you walk up to a stranger on the street and just start yelling at him to talk to you, he's gonna get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay, why would it be any different in a location? You know, you're going in, if you go to, I like to talk about, what do I like to talk about? Oh, I like to talk about Gettysburg. You know, people go out there and they're like, all their fancy gadgets and stuff, and they're like going, talk to me, soldier, talk to me. You have to know what language they were talking back then. How did they talk? How did they dress? How would they be approached? If you have a small child, you don't go up, I don't have somebody like my investigator tell you, I don't have him go up and try to talk to a child. He's huge. You're like, what, 7'10", something like that? He's huge. You want a smaller, yeah, we don't provoke. And for that very reason. What kind of response do you want? A chair to the head, if they're capable? No, you want to go in there and you want to earn their trust. And sometimes people say, well, you go into an investigation, you do this house, you find their findings, you tell them about it, you're done. Investigations can last. They can take weeks, they can take months, they can take years. You have to go in there and you have to get a comfort level, just like with anybody else you meet on the street. You have to learn them, learn their name. What did they do? Talk to them on that level. And then you gain their trust, and then maybe they'll talk to you. And that's one thing that a lot of paranormals, we talk to paranormal groups, and they're like going, oh, we go in and we really,
It's like, show yourself.
yes, they demand.
I'm like,
And it's like,
like, I wouldn't
how-
show myself.
how does that work for you? They say it works great.
Yeah,
Me-
sometimes we do get things.
Right, and we had this conversation on the Ghost Adventures Aftershocks episode. Zach and I, we talked about this. He's learned so much. They took a lot of negative energy with them when they would go to places. Aaron, he's the bald one with the goatee, he actually lost relationships because the spirits that were bothering him at home, his girlfriends couldn't take. So they're gone. They're out of there. And Zach, same thing. He's moved out of houses because they became so active. And that's why, because they went in there and they were demanding and they were assholes.
Yeah.
That's really what happened. So he's learned, they don't do that anymore. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. And we tell people all the time, you're not going to get positive results. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Did you have a question about
No, I
that?
did hear that.
You want? No? Anybody else? Yes.
Real quick, you mentioned geology.
Yeah.
In location. Why is that an important aspect?
Geology, geography. Where is it in the United States? Sometimes, for us, we're very big in the mining era. Telly owned and Carolyn both own the John S. Cook Bank building in Goldfield, Nevada. One of the hotbeds of paranormal activity in the country. And so we're very big into that era, the late 1800s, early 1900s. And if you don't know what was happening there, the geology, stones, okay? So if you're on your building is on limestone, or it's a lot of quartz. Those are believed to be high energy minerals. So you're probably going to have more activity. So it stands to reason. Also, if you buy into the stone tape theory, which is the belief that, say you have a rock wall here, okay, and you murder somebody, that energy is implanted into that. That material absorbs that energy and can play it back. And that's what they call the stone tape theory. So geology, geography, weather, all that stuff plays a huge factor when you're doing it. We have people all the time, they call us up and say, it's raining outside and it's a little windy. Are we doing the hunt tonight at Bonnie Springs? I said, of course. When you have all this energy in the atmosphere, you have energy for the spirits to use. They don't have a physical body. They have to draw it from somewhere. So the more, and they go, well, wind? And I said, yeah. You have trees, friction, rubbing together, static electricity is still energy. So they can actually use that to throw rocks, move things, make sounds. That's what they need to interact with you. So geology plays a big part of it. Geography, where it's at. I'll tell you right now, if I go back east, I can get more activity than if I were out west, because it's older. And if I go overseas, go to England, Ireland, it's going to be that much more. because it's way older. So that has a lot to do with it. Anything else? Nada. If anybody wants to, you can come up here and I can explain some of this equipment. You can check out the mug. I'll be happy to do that. The teacup, sorry. That's very interesting, Linda said that. I kept calling it a mug. And the woman, the psychic said, first off, they want me to tell you, do not call it a mug. It's a teacup. So I've tried to be very good about saying that. It's a teacup. I also have some of my books here if anybody's interested. I'll be happy to sign them for you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Stokercon 2016, Rena Mason, everybody that's involved with this event. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it too and learned something. Thank you so much.